Was in there.
It's the letter.
Yeah, the letter. It's the letter, okay. Tells me about staff.
Please stand for the pledge and the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sal?
Father God, thank you for entrusting us with your town. I ask that you give us wisdom and discernment to make decisions for the best of our town citizens, to lead your town. Please put a hedge of protection around our officers, our town staff, our town residents. May we honor you in everything we say this evening. In your name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you, sir. Welcome.
Roll call?
Commissioner McMullen,
Present.
Commissioner Cullen,
Here.
Commissioner Ramos,
Present.
Vice Mayor Satterfield,
Present.
Mayor Stark.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Has there been any ex parte communication?
No, ma'am. No.
So it is the auditor presentation is next.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Be ready to suffer. I am going to try to share my screen so that I can go over my presentation.
How come we didn't make you last, Mike?
I'm sorry?
How come we didn't make you last? You're so comfortable there.
Yeah, I know, right? Because you guys are nice. You always have me up front. Okay. Hopefully you can see the presentation. This is something that I usually put in a little booklet and I bring with me when I give the presentation, but I wasn't able to put this together until this week. So I'm here tonight to go over the results of our audit for the year ended September 30, 2019. And I'll tell you, given the curveball that COVID-19 threw everyone, we got started late on the audit, but we finished right on time. And that goes a lot to say about the city management that helped us through it and worked with us as we worked through the audit as much as we could remotely. I think we only spent a day there doing actual on-site field work. So we finished on June 30th at 12:01. So the date on the audit report you'll see are June 30th. But you have the document in front of you, and you know, as each year I don't go through that whole document, I'm going to try to go over a summary, which is this handout. And I'll try to go through it rather quickly today, because in the past, you know, I've really been worried about the financial condition of the city, because not only is it an audit where we go over some of our, you know, findings and some recommendations we have, but it's also a look at the city from a high level perspective on the financial condition and some of the trends of the city. And in the past, they have been negative. And I'm glad to say you're going to see the beginning of a turnaround this year, so I don't have to really go over some of these graphs like I had in the past. The first page of my handout here, it's a summary of all the audit reports that you'll find in the financial statements. There's 5 of them. Last year there were 6. Last year you had a special audit for your state grant. You didn't have that this year because you didn't expend more than $750,000 of grant money this year, so you didn't have the state single compliance audit. But you still had 5 audit reports that are in your booklet that you have in front of you. The first one on page 1 and 2 is our main report on the financial statements. This is where we give you an opinion on whether the financial statements that follow page 1 and 2 are free of any significant errors and are reported the way they're supposed to be reported. And the result of our audit is an unmodified or a clean audit opinion. And what that means is there are no material errors, and the financial statements are presented in conformity with the rules that the city has to follow in external financial reporting. And that's not to say you're in a good financial condition or a bad financial condition. Rather, it says that the financial statements are a fair representation of what actually happened. You have to go read them and you can make your own judgments on what kind of financial condition you are in. We're going to look at some trends, but that's not what the audit report is for. It's just to tell you that it's a fair representation. In the back of the financials, there's a government auditing section, and that begins on page 46 and 47 with our report on internal control and compliance. This report is required by government auditing standards. They're rules set forth by the federal government, and they apply to the town because the Florida legislature says it does. So we have to apply government auditing standards to our audit of the town of Oakland. And this report on page 46 and 47 will report to you any significant non-compliance we note or any weaknesses in internal controls that we deem to be significant. And as you can see here, right here, we have 2 material weaknesses to report and 2 significant deficiencies to report and no non-compliance. It's important to note that about 10 years ago, 9 years ago, you had about 12 findings. You're down to 4, which is 2 less than last year. So these are working themselves off of the books as the town continues to work towards correcting some of these, and we'll go over those at the end. On page 48, you'll find a special compliance report on your compliance with section 218.415 of the Florida statutes. And this has to do with the investment of public funds. As you can see at the bullet point, there are no non-compliance noted during this testing. This is a special report required by the state of Florida Auditor General. On page 49 and 50, you're going to have our management letter. There's a lot of stuff in that management letter, but the bottom line is there are no new recommendations or new findings. As you read through that management letter, which I would encourage you to do on page 49 and 50, it's essentially a boilerplate report. There's a separate report that's included in the back of the financial statements. We call it our governance letter. It's a letter directly from us to you on the Board of Governance. Then we can communicate to you some quantitative information in this report, such as disagreements with management. If we're having disagreements with management or difficulties getting the audit done, we can report it to you in this report. One of the important things you'll find when you read through this letter is we have to disclose to you material audit adjustments that we make. So when we come in to do our audit, if we find any errors that we deem significant, we propose an adjustment for those and we report them in this letter, and you'll go and you can see some of the material audit adjustments that we had to make while we're doing our audit in that report. So that's the summary of the 5 reports. And, that's really the extent of our obligation as auditors is to render these reports. But I do want to go over a couple of financial trends with you because I feel it's definitely a value-added service, and you can kind of see the financial trends of the city through our eyes as auditors. So I put together a couple of charts for you. First thing is a quick look at the town. The town is really broken up into 2 types of activities: governmental type activities and business type activities. When you hear governmental activities, you want to think about your general fund, your impact fee fund, and your charter school special revenue fund. And your business type activities is now your water and sewer fund, just to give you a little bit of a picture of how the financial statements break the town into pieces. First thing we're going to look at is your general fund, and we're going to take a look at your balance sheet. This is a snapshot at the end of business on September 30, 2019 in this column, 2018 in this column, and you can see the change over here on the right and the change as a percentage. Now you see you're going to see a lot of changes. Unrestricted cash went up $800,000. You had some liabilities that went up, some went down. You'll see a lot of changes in the balance sheet composition, but the one thing you can always drill down on and look at one number is this bottom line number here. It's what's called fund balance. It's your reserves. And that's of utmost importance when determining the financial health of your general fund. You want to look at your reserves, not all of your reserves, because as you can see here, you have 2.3 million that's restricted. That you want to set aside, and you want to look at the unrestricted. What do we have operationally that we can use for future spending, emergencies, and the like? That's this number. Yes.
I'm sorry. Can you tell me where to find this page?
The one that we're looking at here?
Does everybody have it except me?
I can't find it either.
Is it in
No.
the separate?
So just to be clear, this is his presentation. This is something separate, but he can
Okay.
go over some of these as part of this presentation.
All right.
This graph, or what he's showing here, is just an abbreviation of some of the tables that are in the actual audit.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
That's right. Thank you, Steve. I wasn't clear about that. You know, usually I bring this or I deliver it with the financials, but I wasn't able to put it together until just this week and
It's just
wasn't able to
hard.
get to it.
I mean, I see numbers, but I can't necessarily
Read them.
read them.
Okay. Okay. Well, sorry. Here's what I'll do is I'll make sure you get a copy of this as soon as possible.
That would be
And,
great.
you know, if you want to be punished again and have me give another presentation once you've had it in
No,
hand,
thank you. No.
I can come and go over it. But I will make sure you get a hard copy of this. So, okay, I know you can't focus on the numbers, and we'll just look at it big picture. The orange line is the most important line, and that says
Can you
$650,000.
zoom in on it? From your end?
I'm sorry?
Can you zoom in on it from your end?
Yeah, let me see.
What did you say, Sal?
If they can.
Is that a little bit better?
That's better. That's better.
You get a little bit closer, yeah.
I cannot
Okay.
read it by just a little bit now, Mike.
Okay. All right. Well, it's not definitely not the perfect situation, but
Thank you.
y'all.
Thank you. That's good.
Okay. Let me scroll up a little bit again. You're going to have your assets. You're going to have your liabilities. But as I say, the most important number, you can just drill down on one number and it tells the whole story. And that's this orange line. It's going to be your reserves that are unrestricted. You know, you may have $2.6 million in liabilities, assets, but you do have a lot of liabilities that have to be paid from those assets. So this number nets them all. That's what's left over. If you were to collect all your receivables and turn everything into cash and pay off all of your liabilities up here, what you would have left over is $650,000, which is a remarkable change from last year, which was $22,000. So the question when you get to this point is always, is $650,000, is that good or bad? Right? And I always use the city of Tampa as my example. They go through $1 million a day in their general fund. So if you were Tampa and you had $650,000 in reserves, that would be bad. You couldn't even get through one day if there were an emergency or the like in the general fund. So what we do is we look at it as something relative to the general fund, and we compare it to your annual expenditures. So here's your annual expenditures in the general fund is here. $6.3 million were spent in the general fund. When we take your reserves as a percentage of that, we get this 10.3% or 1.2 months of reserves. So this is when you have to assess, is this good or bad, right? It's kind of like the Susie Orman or the Dave Ramsey number. You know, how much do you need in your emergency fund? Well, I'll tell you, the GFOA, which is the Government Finance Officers Association, has set forth a minimum for this number, and it's 2. They want the minimum amount of unrestricted reserves in your general fund to be 2 months at a minimum. You know, that's not a target. That's going to be your minimum. And here you can see where you were at last year, 0.05. You had almost none. You only had $22,000 last year. So it kind of shows you the increase. You went up 2,785% in your unrestricted fund balance, which is remarkable. I'm going to go to a slide on the next page. It's going to show you this trend over 6 years. So here's your trend. And let me tell you how this works. Here, you're the solid blue line. And there's your percentage that we looked at on the prior page, 10.3%, or that 1.5 months of expenditures. But look where you've been. I mean, you've been 0 or sometimes below 0. You know, and in fact, for 3 years running prior to 2018, you were below 0. Technically, that would be an insolvent situation, right? That means your liabilities were greater than your assets. And as you can see in 2019, you had that 10%. So it's a remarkable turnaround. And, you know, like I say, I expect to see this going forward as some of the building has come online and that's starting to filter through on your garbage revenue and your ad valorem taxes. And I really expect this to increase in the future. The solid red line are going to be your peers. I compare the town of Oakland to like size municipalities in the state of Florida based on taxable property value and population. And so this is where your peers are at. You have 15 peers in the state of Florida, and their average is 71%, and then you're at 10. Now, that's not to say that's good or bad. That's just to say what your peers are doing there.
Just so you know, it's page 11 in this summary of financial indicators, if you want to actually see it on a page.
Okay, Steve, so did you hand out that the trending booklets? Okay.
Yeah, they've got the trend booklet.
Okay, great. Yeah, this information is in there then. What I do is I just pull out the 4 slides that I feel.
She just handed it out separately.
Okay. I just pull out the 4 slides I find most important. And,
I got 10, 12.
So the financial condition of the general fund, I mean, it's still below that 2-month mark, but it's a remarkable improvement. And this is the one, I've been worried about for years. We've talked about
This
this.
is a condensed version.
It's good. We can see it on the screen. We're good.
Okay. So that's a look at the financial condition of the general fund. Now let's take a look at revenues and expenses of the general fund. We saw that your unrestricted fund balance went up 2,000%. Well, you want to know, how did that happen? Well, when you go to this next page, it's a summary of what you'll find in the audited financial statements. And this is going to be your revenues here at the top, 6.3 million, 5.5 in 2018. And your expenditures here in the middle, 6.3 million, 5.4 in the prior year. The difference between the two is this. We can call it, it's revenues minus expenditures. We can call it a profit. You're not supposed to in a governmental fund, but we know that metric and what makes that up. So you can see you had a positive revenue after all your expenditures. So your general fund is self-sufficient, and it has been in the past at times. And that's important because the enterprise fund, as you know, it's struggled in the past. And we're going to see when we look at that may be behind us as well, because it's doing pretty well. But when the enterprise fund is struggling to generate positive cash flow, your general fund has to operate at a positive number. Revenues have to exceed expenditures, and you see that they do here. Now you can see the differences over here in the right-hand column, the change column. See your taxes went up 11%. That's going to be your general taxes. More people in the town are going to generate more of the water utility tax, communication services tax, electric franchise fees, electric utility tax, and ad valorem taxes.
And Mike,
Yes.
that doesn't mean that we raise ad valorem taxes. It just means that there's more volume in taxes.
Absolutely. That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Just to be clear.
That's right. More people on the tax rolls, and the rate doesn't need to change for you to receive more taxes. This other line, some of these big numbers, other income, this $481,000 is essentially the $500,000 grant for the Art and History Museum. Is what caused that year over year to increase. Now you see charges and services went up, intergovernmental revenue went down. Like I say, there's a lot of changes that go on, but you can see here that total revenue went up 14% in 2019. You take a look at your expenditures, and here's the big one that sticks out right here, capital outlay. $840,000 in capital spending in 2019. That's a 160% increase. And as you know, $400,000 of that is expenditures for the Art and History Museum. But there was some land purchased this year, plus over $100,000 in equipment. So, as the population grows, some of that capital has to take place as well to fund that growth. So what's important to look at here is the difference between revenue and expenditures. But is $57,000 good or bad? We don't know. What we do is we divide that profit number by your revenue, and we come up with a gross profit number is what this is here on row 20. It's 1%. What this means is for every dollar revenue that came in, you had a penny left over at the end of the year to go into reserves or to go, for a transfer or anything like that. You had a 1% left over. So we're going to take a look at that as a trend on this graph. Now, here's your 1% for 2019, but let's follow this backwards. You're the solid green line. Your peers are the blue line, right? And as you can see here, for several years, actually revenues exceeded expenditures exceeded revenue. I'm sorry, these are years in which there was, we'll call it a loss. There were more expenses than there were revenues to pay for it. And without an interfund transfer coming from the enterprise fund, where did that get funded from? That got funded from cash. That's the drawdown on your cash balances. If you were to go back and look at your overall cash for these years, you're going to see it draw down in these years. But 2018, it was a positive number. In 2019, it's a positive number. But that big number, that capital outlay number, really drives this number lower, because that capital outlay number is part of the math up here. Is going to be your profit or your loss divided by revenue. Well, those capital expenditures play into that. So what I do is I pull the capital expenditures out and I tell you what your percentage would be if you spent 0 in capital outlay. And this is the number right here. So you would be at 14%. So this shows you the gap between the dotted green line and the solid green line is your capital expenditures as a percentage of your total revenue. And as you can see, it's been significant. For the last 3 years, you would have been at a positive all the way up to 16% in 2017. Again, if you weren't making those necessary investments in your infrastructure and equipment in the general fund. So I find this positive. You know, you have, this is an uptrend. If you start right down here in 2016 and go up, and you've been above 0 for 2 years. So it's very positive. When we look at the enterprise fund, it will just kind of build on that, because your enterprise fund is getting to the point where it could make an interfund transfer to the general fund if needed. So those are the 2 graphs I'm going to look at for the general fund. I think both are positive. Both showed a positive trend year over year and heading in the right direction. Now, here's a balance sheet for your enterprise fund. Again, 2019, 2018. And as you can see, you're going to see the big changes. Unrestricted cash went up $200,000. Due from other governments went down. You know, due from other governments at 2018 is the city was due $250,000 for grants. The reimbursements receivable is what that was, and that was received during 2019. There was none at the end of 2019, which is why this number went down. But again, you can draw your attention to the orange section. We can summarize this in one number, and that is, again, the same number. Your unrestricted reserves in your enterprise fund are almost $700,000. Compared to $611,000 in 2018 for an $85,000 or 14% increase. And again, we do the math the same way. We compare your enterprise fund to something relative to the enterprise fund, which is your total revenue. And I find this also remarkable. This is $1.6 million in revenue for 2019. You know, when I started auditing the town in 2009, that was at $400,000. So you've quadrupled your enterprise fund revenue in that 10 years. That's amazing. But as the activity in the enterprise fund grows, so must your reserves, right? I mean, if you double or quadruple your activity, your reserves need to grow in proportion so that you have the same relative percentage set aside. And so that's what we do. We divide your unrestricted reserves by your revenue. We come up with 44%. So this is the same math that's in the general fund. The enterprise fund has 5 months, really 5 months and a week of reserves set aside in unrestricted reserves. So what that means is, as of 10/1, if your water and sewer utility customers decided just to stop paying the town, how long could the enterprise operate at the same level of service? And that answer is 5 months. That's a pretty strong financial condition, down slightly from last year. Last year you were at 6, but like I say, this is the first year that the sewer segment has actually been generating income and paying expenses, and it's still getting off the ground. So there's still a little bit of drag there from the sewer department, but that'll correct itself when more sewer customers come online. So I think the 5.2% is a good number. Let's take a look at your peers on the next page. And here's your percentage, 43, like I say, down slightly from 2018 to 51. And there's your peers right at 57. So you're right in line with your peers. When we take a look at 2017 to 19, slightly below your peer group. And I think that's pretty decent financial condition of the enterprise fund. Now you're going to see a large drop. If we were to go back for years, you would see this was almost 200% at some point. And, you know, at some point there is too much reserves. If you have 2 years of your revenue sitting aside in unrestricted net position, you better have a reason for it, you know, have it set aside for some construction or something like that. And really what's happened is that investment of bringing that 200% down to the 27% to bring this sewer segment of the town online. So I look at this as positive as well, because you're close to your peers, you're level, you're not, even though you're growing, you're not dropping. This isn't going down. Your reserves are growing as the activity in the enterprise fund grows. So on the next page, take a look at the revenues and expenses of your enterprise fund. Here's your operating revenue. There's the 1.6 million, up from 1.2 in 2018, or a 35% increase. And your expenses to operate the enterprise fund only increased by 17%. So when your revenue increases 35%, expenses 17, here you have a 112% increase in your operating income. Now, here's a graph down at the bottom. This is your profit percentage. So you take your revenue, you minus your expenses, and you have your operating income. We take a look at this number as a percentage of this number, just like we did with the general fund. What percentage of those revenues do we have left over after we pay for operating expenses? And that number's here, 29 cents. For every dollar revenue that's billed to utility customers, you have 29 cents left over to add to fund balance, to make capital expenditures, or to make interfund transfers. All these different things that an enterprise fund does. So here's that number over time, and this is where I think is really remarkable. The solid green line is, again, the town of Oakland. Look at this, negative 43%, negative 24%, negative 30%. So that means for every dollar of revenue you bill, you're having to go somewhere else for 30 cents. You know, that's tough. And where did it come from? It came from the cash balances. We looked at your reserves had dropped in these years. Now, the dotted green line is the activity once the sewer expenses are taken out of the mix, because in these years, there's a lot of expenses going towards getting the sewer segment off the ground and operating, and it wasn't generating any revenue in these years. So that's why I wanted to show the actual activity. So the dotted green line is going to be your water activity. And as you can see, it was even below zero in 3 of the 6 years presented. So look at this, though. That is a strong number, 30%. And look at your peers, they're right around 0%. But this is operating income. I think the most important thing to look at in the enterprise fund is going to be your cash flows. And this is, again, is a remarkable graph. I want to tell you how this works is the blue line is going to be your cash flows in your enterprise fund. So just think water and sewer customers. This is cash customers pay us less what we pay to run the utility. This is strictly on a cash flow basis. And look at this, you generated $695,000 just from operating the utility. That's an operating cash inflow, up from $509,000 in 2018. And look at these years. Those years on the prior slide that were economic losses were also very low cash flow years as well. The red line is going to be your debt service requirements, and the green line is going to be blue minus red. So anytime these are below zero, where's that coming from? That's coming from the bank account. So you can see 2015, $152,000 drawdown in cash, $25,000 in 2016, $52,000 in 2017. But look here, 2018, you're starting to get customers online to fulfill some of that capacity you had in your utility systems. $400,000 positive cash flow, $562,000 positive cash flow. So I think back on all those years. I was talking with Dennis at our exit conferences, and I'm saying, you know, this is looking bad. I mean, this is negative cash flows. And he kept telling me, you got to put gas in the tank to get to California. That's what he always told me. And you can see here, if Dennis was here, I think we could say we got to California. I mean, this is really a remarkable turnaround in the enterprise fund. And so that's the summary of the financial conditions. Like I say, I think we're at the beginning of a pretty big turnaround. I think years from now, I can always pull that slide back up, and I've got this information from 2009, and we can look at it long term, and we can see what's happened. And I think we'll look back in a few years and marvel at how low the financial condition was, and you made it through it to the other side, or to California, as Dennis would say. But that's the financial overview. This is a summary of our findings. Last year, we had several findings that were cleared. Let's see, we had 7 last year. I think I misspoke before. There were 7 findings last year. This year, there's 4. These with lines through them have been corrected. The other ones have not. These are the utility billing reconciliations. Now, the town is very close to getting this fixed. And when moving to a new accounting system now and moving to a new utility billing system has helped move the town along in making this happen. But in summary, what 10-01 is saying is if you have utility billing detail in one system and you're accounting for all of your other financial information in another system, the reconciliations between the two are critically important to prevent errors. If the reconciliations aren't taking place and being done properly, then it won't protect the town. For it could be some loss, it could just be general errors, but there's no way to tell if the reconciliations aren't taking place. 10-05 is an internal control over financial reporting. We as auditors are required to make this finding if there are significant audit adjustments that we're making at the end of the year. I spoke about that governance letter and about some of the material audit adjustments you can find in that report. Now, this is not saying if we find one or two journal entries, do we have to say there's a deficiency in financial reporting, but if it's pervasive, I mean, if they're the same adjustments year over year, or if there's just a lot of them, then yeah, we have to make this finding. And that's what we found this year. But as we wrapped up this year, we met with the finance department and the town manager and the finance department's consultant who helps get ready for the audit. And I thought it was a very useful meeting because we had never sat down at the same table and went over all of our expectations. And I really think we manage those expectations through the process will result in us getting information to audit that's a lot more accurate than it has been in the past. And that kind of dovetails into 10-06 is the restricted cash monitoring, because we talked a lot about unrestricted reserves, but you do have some restricted reserves. There's strings attached to that, and there's certain accounting that has to take place for those funds, sometimes monthly. Some of your debt service requirements require monthly funds to be set aside to pay debt service when it's due and things like that. And so those have to be done on an ongoing basis. So that's 10-06. It kind of dovetails with 10-05. I think that discussion with the finance department and the finance consultant really will go a long way towards correcting this. The other one was 17-001. This is from 2017, and it has to do with the new construction and developer related transactions. Now, that finding is about a page. There's a lot of detail in there, and it's changed a little bit from last year. Some of the conditions we noted in 2018 were corrected. Let's say we had made a comment about support necessary for reporting developer provided infrastructure. You know, a developer provides, so let's say some upsized lines, or they put in some sewer extensions on, you know, that they didn't have to, but for the city while they were out there working for the town, for the town, and they get credit for that against their impact fees. Well, you know, we made a comment last year that we needed some more documentation, and we got some really good documentation this year, really good. Some of the best we've had to support some of those impact fee credits. And so, you know, that fell off, but some of the accounting for the developer review costs needed to be tightened up. And so you can read through this finding and you can see some of the items that we noticed when we went through to do our audit. Essentially, the town incurs costs for development review, and these can be legal, they can be consultants, or they can be the town's employees' time. But some of those get charged back to the developer, and there's rules. You have an ordinance, you have local law that sets forth the process by which you will collect a deposit, incur costs, and then bill the developers for some of these costs. And when we come in to do the audit, we're having a hard time making sure that the town is billing everything that it should, as basically passing through everything that should be passed through. The ordinance says it will pass through these costs dollar for dollar. So the town should recoup 100% of every dime they incur on these development reviews. So I reviewed this finding with the town manager, and I know he had a meeting with staff, and they're well on their way to tightening this accounting up for these transactions. So that concludes the torture for tonight. I can answer any questions you may have from this or the audited financial statements. This isn't the audited packet, of course, the bound book that was delivered is the audited financial statement. So any questions you have from in there or this presentation, I'll be glad to answer it.
Does anybody at the table have any questions?
Big clap. Thank you so much.
Yes, I think we,
Staff, everyone.
Joseph, I know you're out there. Did you count how many times Mike said city?
Oh, Mike busted.
I know.
4.
once.
It was in the beginning. It was only in the beginning. He kind of corrected it after that. But in the beginning, city, 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 city. Yeah,
Good. Other than that, do you have any questions?
I'm good.
Okay. Thank you very much, staff and to the finance department. You know, I think that this sewer wastewater effort, you know, it shows, you know, how we were, you know, putting out money to get back on track. And, you know, we're not, even though you look at the enterprise fund, we're not here to, you know, make a fortune on the enterprise fund, but we do have some expenditures coming up with the expansion of the water system and things like that. So, and the tiered water rates are in place to encourage conservation, because if you meet the first tier of the water rate, our water is actually very affordable. So other than that, I don't have any questions or thoughts.
I'm happy we made
One
it.
thing, Mike, is you've had 10 years to get city for town down, so you're going to be on your own next year with it.
I remind myself every year, and there I stood 4 times.
We appreciate you,
We
Mike.
appreciate all that you do for us. We do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Keeping us out of trouble. So it sounds like we're moving in the right direction.
Absolutely. We're there, I think.
And that's a wonderful thing. Okay, well, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, guys. Have a good
We
night.
don't have to take any action on this, right?
I don't think so.
We have to take action on this?
Accept the audit report.
Yeah.
Is that a motion?
I would do a motion to accept the audit report.
Okay,
Make a motion to accept the audit report.
Second that.
okay. Do we have any questions or comments from the audience? No? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Thank you, Becky.
Thanks, Becky.
Or
Thanks, Mike.
See you,
Thank you.
Mike.
All right, the next is public forum. Anyone who is here who wishes to speak on something that is not already on the agenda, this is your opportunity to do so. You need to come up to the podium and keep your comments very brief. Do we have any takers? I'm just happy to see y'all here, but I'm not sure why you're here. So that's great.
Trying to show off the fashion masks.
Awesome. Okay, we have a consent agenda. Does anybody at the table have any questions about the consent agenda or anything they want to pull out? Okay.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any questions, any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, other policy matters, social media policies, and I would assume Alicia's making that presentation.
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I am here, Alicia Papacoda, Administrative Services Manager, to present to you the proposed social media policies, agreements, and forms. Can you all hear me okay? Okay, great. The purpose of these documents are to protect the town and its employees while encouraging public engagement. A little bit of background first. As a result of our recent strategic communications, you might have noticed that the town's Facebook page is a little bit more active, and we have actually grown our followers by 60% this fiscal year, and our post impressions have grown by 1,000% this fiscal year. So we're doing pretty well there on our Facebook page. The page has become a powerful tool to interact with the public, engage residents, build trust, set the record straight at times, save money in advertising, and communicate quickly during a crisis or weather event. Some notable recent campaigns, and one of them you see up on the screen right now, was Outside My Oakland Window, which is something that we did at the beginning of the pandemic to kind of showcase our residents and what they were doing at home. And the Do Your Part Oak, which is what we have up on the screen. This was a spin-off of what Orlando and Orange County is doing with Do Your Part ORL. And we've done some census messaging, which we're going to continue through the next month or so, and also weather and hurricane alerting. A little bit more background. In addition to the official town page, we also have the Healthy West Orange Arts and Heritage Center at the Town of Oakland Facebook page and a brand new Oakland Police Department Facebook page, which we administrate. So due to this growing social media presence, it's important that we offer some solutions on how to mitigate risk for the administrators like myself, as well as employees and the public who might want to use our social media accounts. So the first document, which is in the packet, is the social media policy for staff. And forgive me, they might be out of order from my presentation. But the goal of this document is to protect the town and its employees by offering some clarity and guidelines on, while also encouraging transparency and empowerment for the staff. This policy applies to all town employees, and it basically says that each employee is responsible for what he or she posts online on their social media accounts. And by creating online content, they should consider some of the risks involved in what they're posting. Some key points in this document are that only designated employees may post official content on behalf of the town. So in no way are we seeking to control or diminish what someone's First Amendment rights or what they can post on their own account, but they shouldn't be posting in an official capacity unless they're designated to do so. Employees should be accurate when engaging in social media activities regarding town business. They should not claim or create social media accounts representing the town. So for example, they shouldn't create an account that says Oakland Town Hall and start posting official business there without approval from the town. And employees should not engage in social media activities that violate the town's policies. The next document is the Town of Oakland Web Privacy Policy and Social Media Terms of Use. And this is a bit more of an extensive legal document that I worked together with Becky and Nancy on. It applies to public users of our social media accounts and website. So that would include the citizens, but also our staff who might be responding on our accounts. It details how a website gathers, stores, and shares information. It outlines our social media terms of use, and it will also talk about the prohibited comments on our social media accounts. I'm going to give you a couple of examples of the comments that we are not going to allow on our social media. So obviously, obscene or profane language, defamatory content, discriminatory content, threats, or content of illegal activity, content that would compromise public safety, content that violates copyright. And if someone were to consistently post this kind of content or repeatedly spam our pages, we would have the right to block them through this agreement, but they would have an appeal process. So they could contact us and we could talk to them and decide that we would give them the right to access our page again. The next form is a social media request form. This is an administration tool that we would use for the administrators of our pages. So right now I am managing most of the accounts, but as they grow, we're obviously going to need a little bit more help in running those accounts. So the administrators of our social media pages will be responsible for the content that they publish on any official social network. And the designee will be responsible for keeping the content up to date, accurate, and relevant. And they must sign their social media request form. This is, they understand the best practices and they take responsibility for those accounts. Last but not least is the Town of Oakland user-generated content agreement. So this agreement will state that a user who posts a photo with a hashtag that Oakland sponsors is giving us the right to use their image in our marketing or promotional materials in the future. This sort of helps us build engagement and get some great content for our pages. And that is the last of our documents. Recommendation is that the Town Commission approve the Oakland social media policy for staff, the Oakland social media request form, the Oakland user-generated content agreement, and the Oakland web privacy policy and social media terms of use.
We're so
Any
moved.
questions?
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing.
No,
So, does anybody have any questions or comments other than I think that I had spent some time thinking and saying that this would really help help citizens understand what we're trying to do and what we're doing. And I really think it has, and I'm very pleased with the communication and the channels that we've opened up in the last year. So other than that, do we have any questions about the policies?
cool.
All right, so what you just asked for, as Mike said, and I was thinking, it sounds like a so moved. So do I have a so moved on that?
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
An audible second.
I can point at you too.
Okay, so do we have any questions or comments from the audience? Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. We come here to find out about this change in the zoning from agriculture to commercial to build over here next to our development, which we live at Lake John Circle.
So you live across Highway 50?
Yes, ma'am.
We're going to be talking about that pretty soon.
So this meeting here was not for this.
But yeah, it is. We're going to talk about it, and it's on the agenda, and we're going to be talking about it in a few minutes. Yep, we'll be there before you know it. Me too.
As fast as I could.
We're not the only one. We do this every 2 weeks. All right, so I have no questions or comments on the social media policies from the audience. All right, I'll take it back to the table. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes, thank you, Joseph. Did you have any questions? Okay. All right. Get back to where I need to be. Tractor Supply Memorandum of Understanding.
Right. And I'm sure that the town manager can recognize this as well. We've been working with the Tractor Supply for almost 2 years now, I think. And, they've switched places. We talked a little bit about this in the first step, which was to give them their variance. And now we're just trying to get into place the fact that we're going to do certain things for them. They're going to do certain things for us. They're going to build the road. We're going to help pay for the road, which will be a good town street, and the utilities, getting the line extension and the sewer, and everything's going along really well. And it looks like we're getting close with the piece at the church next door, the Lakeside Church. So really, we're in good shape. The applicant, the developer, so to speak, has already signed on the dotted line. We have that in hand. So they've already approved this agreement that has these various stipulations and who pays what when. I mean, we're not sure exactly how much it's going to cost to do a couple of things, but that's all going to come out. And so it's happening. It's happening with your permission, of course. Do you have any questions?
And this is what we talked about this at the last meeting and what, this development looks like, so on and so forth. So does anybody at the table and Joseph have any questions? Okay.
This just essentially memorializes what we're expecting as far as, the biggest part of this is Star Street. They're giving up right away. They're going to build Star Street. There's some additional things that we also want added to that to make it a full-blown road once it gets connected to Oakland Avenue. So we're working with them on the sidewalks and some additional parking that would be over and above. And also they're giving some right away on the backside of the property along what could be a future Sadler connection on the road. So this just kind of memorializes that so that they can get moving forward with their plans and know what the expectations are.
So do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the Tractor Supply Memorandum of Understanding.
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from the audience? Okay, I'll bring it back to the table. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so the gentleman in the FSU garb, we are now getting to what you're here for. So we have a public hearing, first public hearing, ordinance 2020-09.
All right, there's three pieces to this. So Jay's got a presentation that'll go through each ordinance. You bring that up, Jay?
I think so. Hopefully it's there.
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, very good. Very good. So this is
You read this into the record first.
I'm sorry. We should at least start with the annexation ordinance, I suppose. Well, let me just get through the overview part, then we can go with the annexation, okay? All right, so as mentioned, annexation, comprehensive plan amendment. It's a small scale, it's under 10 acres, so you can just do that all by yourselves. No sending to the state, and the rezoning. There's still quite a bit to do, site planning, et cetera, to get a building permit. So the annexation, I think needs to be read right now, the ordinance for annexation.
Okay, so ordinance 2020-09, an ordinance of the town of Oakland, Florida, annexing by voluntary petition certain real property owned by Kramer Groves, Inc., bearing property tax parcel identification number 29-22-27-0000-00-0002, 29-22-27-0000-00-040, and 29-22-27-0000-00-19, otherwise known as 16610 West Colonial Drive, Oakland, Florida, and located contiguous to the town of Oakland in accordance with the voluntary annexation provisions of section 171.044, Florida statutes and other controlling law, redefining the boundaries of the town of Oakland to include said property, providing for findings, providing for conditions, directing the town clerk to record the ordinance with the clerk of the circuit court, with the chief administrative officer of Orange County, and with the Department of State, providing for legal description and a map, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability, providing for non-codification, and the taking of admin biting for an effective date.
Where to put, haven't figured that out. You, as the town commission, are now in the position of determining whether to annex this property, which is 7.4 acres. It's owned by Kramer Groves. It's agriculture. So if you, we'll just scroll down a little bit and take a look. If you look down here, you can see where that drainage retention area is for DOT as you look on the south side of, on the south side of 50. And there's a house there, the old homestead of the Griffiths right there. So it really coincides with all of our planning. It's well located within our joint planning area, and It's consistent with the services that we have available. The Planning and Zoning Board looked at this and they recommended that you approve the ordinance to annex. And so we would recommend that you, as the Town Commission, approve the ordinance 2020-09 on first reading to annex the property at 16610 West Colonial Drive.
Jay, can you go back to the map?
Yeah.
That one. So the white area, I'm sorry, I don't see a legend, so.
Yeah, the white area is unincorporated, like.
Okay, so that's still all unincorporated?
Yes, ma'am.
Correct.
Okay. All right, and the purple is us?
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
And the site with all the lot lines, is that John's Lake?
This is across this, over there where Commissioner McMullen lives.
Yes,
Yes.
okay.
You know, I think we have some people who are living in this little subdivision here that I've spoken to on the phone, just FYI.
So what is that little subdivision there? And that would be in unincorporated Orange County?
Yes, ma'am.
Correct.
There's, I think, 13 houses over there. That's essentially 4th Street. The line between the purple
Gotcha.
and the white is 4th Street.
Okay, gotcha. So if you came down to 50 and straight.
Crossed over.
Over Florida Turnpike.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the white area just east of the site, there's no houses or anything there? That's all land?
There's not much in here. There's a water treatment plant and a couple of houses, I think, maybe in here.
And in the white area down on the other side of the turnpike?
There's 13 houses here.
Okay.
Yeah, these are
That's 4th Street.
Yes, this is 4th Street right here.
a little bridge there.
And the bridge over the turnpike's right there. There's a water treatment plant here that Orange County still runs for these houses over here. And there's a couple houses on this side, at least one.
What's directly to the north of that entrance of that site on 50?
That is the commercial development over there.
Where Florida Paints is at?
Kawasaki dealership's probably the
Okay.
closest one,
Okay.
or the motorsports.
Chevron, I think.
No, the Chevron. This is the Kawasaki and
Right. Exactly.
What's that, big toys?
Yeah.
Toys. Yeah, because you can kind of see how
In the back photo, right?
it curves around here. We just bought that piece along Sadler for the extension of the wastewater over
Okay.
there.
And so just so everybody is clear, Jay covered this. The first piece of this public hearing is to annex this piece of property into the town of Oakland. That's the only thing that this does for the first piece. Then there are 2 other pieces that we are going to take next and talk about, the other parts. So we're strictly right now talking about annexing into the town of Oakland. So I need to know if we have any questions at the table. No questions at the table. Okay, so I need a motion.
Make a motion to approve ordinance 2020-09.
So now we have a motion on the table. I need a second, please.
I'll second.
All right. So now, anyone who is here that wishes to make comment on only this first piece, now is your opportunity to do so. You need to come up to the podium, tell us who you are, and keep your comments brief and non-redundant. So if somebody has already said it and you agree, just yeehaw, raise your hand.
And just for point, the applicant and his consultant is here.
Yes. So I take it you want to be first. Okay.
What did they plan on putting here?
First, I need your name.
Oh, Kimberly Parsons. I live in one of the houses the guy pointed out. Yeah. It's been years.
I'm getting, well, with the mask, it's hard to see.
I know.
That's going to come later in the presentation, but I guess, I mean, we can talk about it now. So Steve, do you want to, or Jay?
It's
Yeah, you
up
wanna talk about that?
it's up to you. I think it's good to just, finish this one part and then
It's on the agenda, but
it's on the agenda.
we'll talk about that.
Okay, and what about the site that's in all the white that you guys were talking about, where my property is and all of their property is?
Mhm.
Do we plan on trying to annex all of that in?
This is a voluntary annexation. We don't have any, I don't believe the commission's doing anything to come and annex the rest of that property unless you wanted to voluntarily annex it.
Oh, no. No, I like my little corner of the wall.
I like being in Orange County, not Oakland.
So maybe one of my questions answered.
Okay,
That's normal.
anybody else?
I'm Donald Parsons. I lived right there on that piece of property with my wife, and we've been there for almost 40 years, okay? She's been there longer than I have, and, we're trying to stay in the county. We don't really want to be in the city of Oakland, okay? And-
Pardon,
but y'all put
can you
stuff-
speak up a little bit so we can hear you?
Well,
There you go.
put a mask on, it's hard to talk.
I know.
So anyway, we've lived there almost 40 years, okay? And we like it where we're at. We don't want to be in Oakland. We don't want to be annexed in Oakland.
We're not trying to.
The piece next to us, they're gonna start building stuff there, and then I'm gonna have all the riprap next door to our place. I don't want no riprap out there. I'd rather keep it the way it is now.
Okay.
I don't want to see all the riprap. You're gonna put stores or whatever in there, we're gonna start getting it next door. I don't want to have it.
Okay, and I understand your feeling about that. But we also have to take into consideration that people who own property have rights also. So we
Think of other people too before they start doing
we do.
things.
We try to, balance all of that. And we are not asking you to annex into the town of Oakland. That this is a voluntary annexation.
Yeah, but they need to think before they start doing things, ask other people who lives around there.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Good job.
Anybody else? I can't hear somebody saying something. No? Anybody else? Okay. We have a motion and a second. I'm going to bring it back to the table, close the public hearing. Any more conversation at the table?
No.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Joseph. All right, public hearing ordinance 2020-10. Ordinance 2020-10, an ordinance of the town of Oakland, Florida, changing the town's future land use plan map designation of its comprehensive plan from rural, Orange County Comprehensive Plan, to industrial in the town of Oakland's comprehensive plan for certain real property owned by Kramer Groves, Inc., bearing property tax parcel identification number 29-22-27-000-00-00-002 and 29-22-27-000-00-040 and 29-22-27-000-00-019, also known as 16610 West Colonial Drive, Oakland, Florida, with an approximate size of 7.4 acres, making findings and providing for confidentiality and for an effective date.
Okay, so this is step 2, which is a comprehensive plan amendment. Everything right now, this property is not covered by the town's comprehensive plan. In order for us to regulate it, in order for it to develop in the town, in order for us to provide water and sewer services, if that would be something that would be needed, it has to be in the town. So it's interesting. I actually didn't know until we did this that the law only requires one public hearing, but we're going to have two because we want to make sure that the town is actually annexed and in the town before we comprehensive plan it, if you will. So again, looking at it, again, you see it there, and you see the site and the comprehensive plan with commercial across on the other side. We've got a little bit of industrial over on the west side, and this is actually something different here. But so it's a proposal to rezone, or not rezone, but comprehensive plan to show this as industrial in the future land use plan map. It's in that agreement, as we mentioned. There are services available. The Planning and Zoning Board recommended that that this be approved. So staff would recommend that the Town Commission approve Ordinance 2020-10 on first reading.
Mark, do you guys want to make a presentation at all, or do you just want to respond if need be to questions?
Yes, respond.
Okay. That's, so then, do we have questions at the table?
No.
Okay, we have no questions at the table. I need a motion, please.
I'll make the motion to accept first public hearing of ordinance 2020-10.
Okay, so what this ordinance is doing, second, thank you. What this ordinance is doing is it is taking this from rural to industrial, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Correct.
Okay. And that is all it's doing. So each one of these things is a step to whatever, it becomes, should we vote for it.
Well, we've got to apply, if not to interrupt, Mayor, but we just have to apply the town's color scheme, if you will, in our comprehensive plan. Everything out there in the county around the town is primarily rural agriculture, but basically it's rural. And so when it comes in, we assign one of the town designations, which is usually an urban designation, in this case, industrial, because in the future, the applicant would like to do that in some type of industrial. And it does go along with our policies for that area around 50 and the Turnpike to have non-residential type development in there.
Okay. So I could take a long time to talk about this, and please, Jay, keep me honest if I veer off course. But for the audience, we've spent years working on a corridor ordinance on Highway 50, a corridor ordinance on Oakland Avenue, a design standards for everything that gets built in Oakland, knowing that growth was going to come and we have to be cognizant of property rights for everyone. And the commissioner for District 1 will tell you the same thing, that our standards are much higher than Orange County. So you are far better off if we are considering this than if Orange County is considering a request. That's our opinion. And Orange County Commissioner concurs with that opinion. So I know that change is hard, and and growth is not what you may want, but I just want you to know that this isn't something that is just ill-considered. It has been a long time that we have worked on this, and we really, really want this town to maintain its identity. And so I'm making color commentary for you at this point. So anyway, I have a motion at the table. I have a second. Anyone in the audience who wishes to speak, do just the same thing on this ordinance please come to the podium and keep your comments brief and non-redundant. Come on up.
Lauren Burton, I live in one of the houses, it's a residential area where these other people live. We see absolutely no reason why you would want to use industrial in that. That is, perfect area for a light commercial duty, but not industrial. We've already tolerated the turnpike widening to a massive amount. We have a freight train that roars through our houses every day. Now they're going to add 2 more lanes to the turnpike and make it even worse. And now we're going to bear industrial duty in our backyards also. We don't feel that that's fair to us. We all bought those properties in residential area on a lakefront with the intention of having a nice, quiet place to live.
Right.
That's not what we're getting. So we would choose to have that maybe used for other purposes, being a residential area or for light commercial duty, but in no way industrial.
Okay. And we're not talking about that tonight, right?
As far as the use?
Yeah.
We really are talking about the use here.
Well,
And
why don't we talk about the use now, and why it's industrial and what the use is going to be, because it's really a very quiet use.
that's right, Mayor. And if I could
Okay, go ahead.
let them go ahead.
Okay.
My name is Tom Parsons, and I understand that y'all want to make it industrial to add other industrial buildings there. But when you already have that many houses, you might as well just consider making that more housing developments. That's perfect, more than enough acreage right there to add plenty more houses instead of an industrial building that's going to cause more noise, like he's saying.
Okay. Thank you.
That's all I gotta say.
Appreciate it. All right, Jay, why don't we talk about the use?
I'll just say that this is basically probably more akin to what some people would call actually a light commercial use. It's for a warehousing, mini warehousing, and covered storage of some vehicles. So it's a pretty quiet use. It's not what you call heavy industrial. We don't have any heavy industrial in the town. There's no outdoor industrial. There's no processing outdoors. It's pretty light industrial, if you want to call it that as well. So that's the industrial designation that we're talking about. It's just that's the way all of our policies, that's the way all of our regulations are written, so that if you want to do warehousing, you do have to have an industrial designation. So,
So Jay, this does not have heavy duty industrial manufacturing, working 7 days a week.
You can't say that.
that's exactly the point, is that no, you're not going to have outdoor processing of wood pulp or something like that. It's all indoor storage, nice little, and don't forget, we do have our design guidelines. So all the buildings that are going to be in this little mini warehouse complex, they're all going to have a certain amount of consistency with our design guidelines. So it's not just any old tin building. It's going to be something that we're going to see. We're going to look at the building design when it eventually gets there. And again, though, remember, I'm getting a little ahead of us because I know it's a discussion point. We are still a comprehensive planning, so it's just sort of a general use. Then we'll get into the zoning as the next ordinance and hearing piece that we can talk a little more. And I think it would be good if the applicant would pipe in at that point and talk a little more about what their plans are.
Here is the applicant.
My name is Matt Cope. I reside at 1231 Pine Harbor Point Circle, Orlando, Florida. I'm here on behalf of Kramer. I was the consultant who prepared the 3 separate reports that are included in staff's report to you. On page 80 of the PDF file that was distributed to each of you that you have in your record,
Which is on the town website.
you will see a narrative of relevant facts. And to answer the questions about a low impact commercial use, the owner of the property, Kramer, wishes to develop the 7.4 acres as a personal storage.
Can I stop you for 1 sec?
Yes.
Sorry. Can everybody hear him? Okay, good. All right.
There, if it helps. And face this way.
No, if you can hear. Okay, great. Thank you.
So in Orange County, a personal storage use is allowed in a commercial future land use designation, of which the two zoning categories are C2 and C3. And and by the way, Winter Garden has very similar guidelines. Oakland does not. Oakland only allows personal storage in the I1 zoning category, and the I1 zoning category is only allowed in the industrial future land use classification. If someone is concerned that once development order for the site plan has been issued, based on the design guidelines that we're seeking to have approved, if the town staff wishes to initiate a comp plan amendment to change this industrial to commercial, we have no problem with that. If you wish to initiate an amendment to your zoning map and to create, say, a new zoning category called highway commercial, since we're sandwiched between Highway 50 and the Turnpike, which makes it different than a lot of the other C1 that you described in your code, we would not object to that either. We thought we would have a chance for this to be a commercial use. This more straightforward way is to process it as the town currently allows a low impact use, of which the number one thing that we would suggest you'll see in your report is what folks are worried about in a typical industrial use is semi trucks. And they're bringing goods to and from they're bringing materials in and they're taking finished goods out. A personal storage does not have that type of vehicle use. It has personal vehicles which are bringing materials in and people are storing them in all different sizes of personal storage spaces. So it's completely different. Of all of the commercial traffic generation rates that you can have, which we have provided in the report, this use is the lowest of all of the commercial uses you could possibly have. So it will not have a negative traffic impact on the town roads.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else have any further comments on this particular hearing? All right, I'm going to close it to the public. Oh, okay.
I just kind of have a question, and
Sure.
I don't know a lot about this. My name's Leah Berry, and I do live across over there. If it's already not annexed, and it's already zoned for what you're wanting it for through Orange County, why don't you just, it's not? So I wasn't understanding all of that.
I can answer your question, and it's a good question.
Okay.
And people have been baffled by it for about 2 decades.
So we're going to clear it up here now, right?
The only thing I could get is that they'll provide you water and sewer if you're annexed.
Only if annexed.
Yes.
Orange County, 30 years ago, established what is called an urban services boundary line as part of their growth management plan, where property on their future land use map designated rural would not ever be allowed to be served any municipal services by Orange County utilities.
Okay.
Therefore, any properties, that's when then properties that were close to local government municipalities, they created these joint planning areas, joint planning agreements, where they established boundary lines and they said, in the future, we do intend for these municipalities, such as yours, and this property is within your joint planning area, to be served utilities. So the only way that this property can be developed as anything other than rural is for it to be annexed into the town and developed consistent with the town's comp plan.
And therefore falling into the different category of industrial versus.
Commercial. Commercial, if it would be
If
allowed.
your plans for storage doesn't go through, then you would then be already annexed in as industrial. and could build, something else could go in that spot.
That's not even the point of wanting to do this.
Oh,
So-
I know it's not the point, but I'm forward thinking that if that didn't go through, because we do already have storage and boat parking across the street from where you're proposing.
It would have to go through another approval process.
It would, yeah, if they wanted to do something different, if it was going to be heavy industrial, it would still have to go through a process with the town to get approval.
It would already be zoned that would be okay, and you guys would be the only ones who have to approve anything, it wouldn't have anything, we wouldn't be able to put input into it. Not that we can now.
No, you would have input.
It wouldn't
But it
matter.
would be zoned.
It wouldn't matter because you have authority in anything less.
Could you state your name?
10 acres.
Your name?
Billy. Last name Gary.
Can I?
But thank you for
Yes. And these are all good questions, okay? The shape of the property, the fact that it is set off from Slip Road 50. There will never be access directly from the turnpike because that's limited access right away, okay? Not only that, but the shape of this property and the size of this property is of no interest to an industrial use to which you would be concerned with. And also the traffic, you have a median, there's never going to be the ability to be westbound and turn into this property. So again, the number one dominant use of a industrial use to which you would be concerned with. I have been hired by homeowners associations throughout the state to show the factors involved in why local commissions should not allow a particular use. The number one use that you would be concerned with is semi-truck trailers bringing raw material in and finished product away. And that is not going to occur here.
What about forklifts?
And no one would be interested here. There won't be forklifts because the way that the inside of the buildings work doesn't, there's no need for a forklift.
So, Steve, correct me if I'm off. If it ever comes back and their plans fail, they'll come back to us to decide. And again, we wouldn't be approving any heavy industrial anyways, correct?
That's correct.
Is that correct, Jay?
That's correct.
Yeah, and there's still design districts and traffic studies and things that would have to happen in order for someone to put something else industrial there.
Hang on 1 second. Hang on 1 second, please.
So there would still be decision points along that process.
Okay.
It wouldn't have this decision point of the comp plan and the zoning, but there would be decision points as far as what somebody would put on that property that the commission.
If it were to change, it would, you know, the approval process for whatever was requested basically starts over. The zoning doesn't, but everything else.
And I'm repeating that just so the audience can kind of understand what our stand would be.
Okay.
We make them go through the whole process, whatever they bring you to us.
And, you know, what I do ask is that one person at a time speaks so that everybody hears what's being said. So the young man in the yellow shirt in the back, if you want to come up front, if you have something to say, come on up.
Well, I heard the name once, but I'll say it again. My name is Tom Parsons.
Okay.
I just don't understand why this man keeps saying heavy duty. No one ever said heavy duty industrial. All we said was light duty industrial, which still, even if you say light duty industrial doesn't make a lot of noise, which I understand where you're coming from, but you got to understand you got F-350s, you got 450s, you got long gooseneck trailers, you got any size vehicle that can make a lot of noise like that. Just like a regular car pulling a trailer come in, hit speed bumps, it makes noise. We're right behind that property. We're butted up right to it. Any little thing like that can make noise. I don't understand why y'all want to keep making it industrial. I would make it not agricultural. I would make it zoning for homes where people can live. That would make less noise. Not industrial. That's stupid. It's all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Wait, hang on.
Can I respond to that just real quick? Because that's a good point to make. Matt Cope, again, on the record. You just had a presentation earlier from a CPA who told you about your tax base and how, because of development, your tax base is going like this. If you were to have him prepare for you presentations of counties that have municipalities, what is it that, what are the number one uses that those property appraisers and tax assessors want? They want commercial. The residential is good, but the commercial uses pay more taxes. And the fact that you are behind the ball on commercial, non-residential uses is something that you really do need to think about in response to the typical questions of, it should just be more homes. It should just be more homes. At some point, you do need to increase your land use diversity and create commercial.
Yeah, and you know, you're probably gonna say the same thing I am, so go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, I'm not thinking this.
When we consider things about what we do, we consider what is right in the right places.
Oh, I agree.
And I do know that you folks live in a place that 20 years ago made sense to be residential. It might not make sense today for it to be residential. And we don't think about it in terms of money. We think about it in terms of, is this the right thing to do on this piece of property? And we have looked at Highway 50 and we have designated the uses as such. And Highway 50 is a commercial corridor. So, yes, sir. Come on up.
I had a question for the applicant.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Then I was wrong. You weren't going to say what I was going to say.
Because of the concern about traffic and noise, I just want some clarification. You got your trip generation data in here, and that said for mini warehouse 1.51 per 1,000 square feet, I believe, right?
Yes.
So how many thousands of square feet are we talking about?
I think the calculation is provided right in there.
Okay.
I might have to search to find the page you're on, but.
Total building.
86,800.
So.
All right.
So we're talking about like you would expect over 100 trips a day in and out of the warehouse?
It's about, I think the number's more like 160 a day total. Average daily traffic, of which then that's broken into AM and PM peaks, which is provided in that analysis as well. But
how many people go to storage units?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking it'd be very little.
And that versus a commercial area would have around the same amount, whether it would be a restaurant or a gas station.
It would have way more than that.
It would be more, so commercial would have more traffic.
this has, of all of the commercial uses, of all the non-residential commercial uses, this has the lowest traffic generation rate.
What I thought people.
So even if we were to go to commercial, you would have more traffic.
You would have much higher traffic.
More traffic, and you could have the possibility of not controlling the fact of the hours, Saturday and Sunday, or, because on a Sunday in light industrial, you typically closed.
For personal storage, I would think that there would be hours in which a personal storage would be available.
Okay.
I think personal storage, I always think of this being very low traffic impact. I just figure people, they store it up and how many units there. Yeah. Hardly ever come there to even see it, you know? So I'm even surprised that it's as high as what you're saying, but.
You're looking at 160 roll-up doors that are going to be opening and closing every day?
No, sir, it's going to be climate controlled interior. So there will be, first there will be a gated entrance area, then there will be an office, and then from there, after people sign in, they will go through 4 separate entrances where there will be hallways, and their controlled storage units will be served from an interior hallway.
you had mentioned something about commercial and how commercial properties generate more income, then I would think
Tax
Oakland would be.
revenue, they generate tax revenue.
Correct. I think Oakland would be more inclined to zone this as C1, C2, provided that you pass to create those zoning districts, as opposed to industrial, which is going to be very much less regulated and open to more problems with the people in this room.
That's not how our zoning code works. And you can see any town you look at, most of them have a zillion zoning districts because everybody comes in and says, well, I want my own zoning district. And so, you know, like, okay, let's get a C4 or a C5 or 2 or 3 or whatever. I mean, there's a ton of zoning districts in Orange County, a lot more than we have. You just look around and it doesn't make any sense from a planning standpoint.
Does this planned use meet the Highway 50 zoning overlay? Does that affect?
We don't have that anymore. We have an overlay, design overlay that goes over everything in the town. So it incorporated everything that was in the Gateway Corridor overlays. And that was adopted in September of 2018. And so now we've just updated our code. So you can look through very easily and see that the industrial 1 zoning district is, it's a pretty restrictive zoning district, and
It also doesn't allow for any roll-up doors or outside services or.
Well, no, it allows for roll-up doors and things like that. There's no, that's just a typical industrial use, but outdoor storage and all that kind of stuff has to go through a different process and be specifically approved. So it's not easy to do something like that. And I would.
Okay, go ahead, Jay.
I would just remind you all that right now we're talking about comprehensive planning, which, you know, is not.
Yeah, but we still got to get to this point, so we might as well
Yeah,
get.
we may as well get there.
Yeah.
But this development, whatever they build, is subject to the design district and will have to meet the standards of the design district.
So what are, I'm sorry, I have a question.
Sure.
My name is Bill Berry, John Lake Circle as well. What are the standards?
We have a huge design district overlay. I couldn't sit here and tell you exactly what that means. We can get you documents.
A little bit about it. It has prototype buildings for every type of use, whether it's industrial, whether it's multiple family, whether it's single family. So you have to look at each one of those prototypes. You have to look at the design districts, which is one of the, there's like a third layer that we'll be talking a little bit about tonight. And so it's too involved really to talk about, other than to say the town has decided, the town commission decided to keep the character, if you will. And so we developed design districts that are unlike your typical zoning districts. They're architecturally oriented. There's buildings, there's roof lines have to be a certain way. The roof truss lines have to be a certain way. Windows have certain standards. So I'm trying to make a point that it's much more extensive than your typical, here's a metal building, go for it. You can't do that here. You can't.
I understand that. Well, I would challenge everybody here to go to the nearest storage unit. There's one right down here on the left, going toward Claremont. People live in them. People sell all kinds of crap out of them. And that's what they're talking about, the riffraff. You can't quantify how you're gonna take care of that.
You're gonna have security standing around?
Because they people up here live in them every day. And you're talking about Sunday? Sundays, they're busy as that.
That's a good question.
Jay,
Yes.
what about that riffraff?
Well, you know, there is something I think that is called management, and the old style storage, warehousing, it's these U-Haul kind of metal, little metal buildings with, very little improvement. That's not something that's going to be done here. And you couldn't do that in the town of Oakland. There are too many value-added pieces, and I don't want to scare off the applicant, but just to say that, and we've discussed these matters with them as far as complying with our design district guidelines. There's quite a bit to do, and it's not going to be just something off some tin mobile home type shed off on the road. It's substantial. It's not onerous, but it's significant. And when you have to look at things like roof lines and building facades, and of course there's landscape. So we've got a very high quality minimum standard, if you will, that has been looked at. And we have a designer who helps us look at buildings, make sure that they're all in ship shape. So when you look at new buildings in Oakland, you see things like the racetrack, which is a beautiful brick building. Recently, the veterinary clinic was built, very nice. With
Okay, Jake, I think we've got enough to go on.
Here's the bottom line, and this is just my opinion with it. If the type of use you're talking about is a misuse of the property, as a town, we would want to probably step in and do something there also, because that's not something that we want in this town either, is people living in.
I want to see the block from my place. I don't want to see none of it, okay? You put it out there, I want the block. Where y'all know the driveway can come in right next to that pond?
What's that?
Where's the driveway gonna be? Right next to the pond come in?
We haven't gotten to that
We haven't
point
got
yet.
that far yet.
We're not even close to
There's a
that.
turn lane right there going in. That's the only turn lane. Everything else goes the other way.
Okay.
We thank, and I hope that you come along the journey with us, and we will take your comments into consideration.
Yep, because I mean, if they're gonna come to my driveway, I don't want to see it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I think we need to bring this back to the subject at hand, which is the first public reading of the second item, Ordinance 2020-10, which is changing the use from rural to industrial. We have a motion on the table, and we have a second. Do I have any further comment that's not redundant out in the audience? Okay, I'm going to bring it back to the table. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, now we have first public reading, Ordinance 2020-11.
Just everybody remember too that there's 2 readings for all of this also.
Yeah, so there's, in 2 weeks, we'll be talking about
September 9th.
September 9th. That's at our budget hearings.
First public hearing, ordinance 2020-11, an ordinance of the town of Oakland, Florida, changing the town's official zoning map designation from E1 agriculture, Orange County, to I1 industrial general in the town of Oakland for a parcel of land owned by Creamer Groves Inc., bearing property tax parcel identification number 29-22-27-0000-00-0002 and 29-27-000-00-040 and 29-22-27-000-00-019, also known as 16610 West Colonial Drive, Oakland, Florida, with an approximate size of 7.4 acres, making findings and providing for conflict, severability, and for an effective date.
Thank you. Everything was basically just stated. I think 7.4 acres from A1 agricultural in Orange County unincorporated area to an I1 industrial general in the town of Oakland. So there you see our zoning district map, and here you see the site. So, pardon me?
Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah. Okay, so again, this is consistent with all of our documents. I know even before I was here, there was a vision plan that was done for the town, which is on our website, and you can look at it. And it shows this area for non-residential, commercial, and industrial uses. And that's what we used when we developed our comp plan, when we looked at our trying to think of the master mobility plan. And this has guided all of our services. It's not just out of the air. It's been thought about, and you have contemplated it over many years. The services are available, and you heard during the audit that we're very active and involved in providing water as well as sewer. The traffic impact on State Road 50, which is the main access to this point, is basically negligible. If you look at the consultant's traffic analysis, the Planning and Zoning Board recommended approval of this. So this was where you really get down to, it's a straight zoning. It's not a planned industrial plan unit development where you put the site plan in, but you're going to see the site plan. You're going to see the buildings. It's going to go through the appearance review board. It'll go through planning and zoning, and it'll come to you at that point. So right now we're just trying to get to the point of putting a zoning designation underneath that planning designation underneath the annexation. So basically there you have it, is on first reading, rezone to Industrial 1, Industrial General District in the town of Oakland.
So, do we have any questions of Kate? All right, I need a motion, please.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2020-11.
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded, and this is merely the change in land use. There are going to be many, many more meetings about this and about what the buildings look like, and there's lots and lots of work to be done and more input to be given. So if anybody has any comments from the audience at this time about what we're talking about, we will be glad to take them. Please come to the podium and keep your comments brief. All right, I will bring it back to the table. Any further questions or comments? No. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. September 9th, we will be readdressing this again. If you guys, don't want to stay for the rest of the meeting, you are welcome to go ahead and leave. Thank you.
Absolutely.
The first one was missed because the sign was placed where none of us knew it was there. The meeting that was in July, nobody knew, none of us knew about it because the signs were placed where you couldn't read them. Yeah.
That wouldn't have been them, that would have been us.
Okay, yeah, I was just saying that this might not have been necessary had we.
Right, and, okay, and I have a couple of questions I'll check with staff on. Okay. But yeah, we should make sure that you'll be able to see them. Thanks
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for taking the time and deliberation. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
Everyone.
So notification, you got it. Okay. All right. First public hearing, ordinance 2020-15.
Ordinance number 2020-15, an ordinance of the town of Oakland relating to the hours and days of permitted construction activities within the town limits, providing for a purpose and adopting findings, creating section 14-149 of chapter 14, buildings and building regulations, providing for an effective date and duration, providing for geographic area covered, providing for severability, conflict, and providing for an effective date.
Okay, I've got an extensive PowerPoint presentation on this, so I hope you all can, no, there's nothing to really talk about.
Okay, you keep it up, Jack. See where that gets it.
I'll go ahead and take this. So we had the discussion about construction times.
You
And
all know Relative, so we put it together and looked at some of the other jurisdictions around, and they do have restrictions, especially on Sunday. So we just tried to be reasonable, and you see it's permitted construction hours on from 7 in the morning on your weekdays to 8 p.m., Saturdays 9 in the morning to 8 in the evening, and restriction, no construction on Sundays and holidays. That's it.
So I'm sorry, I clearly cannot multitask. I missed, who wanted this? We wanted this, right?
Well, we always thought it was in place.
We talked about
Yes.
it. Remember you and I
Yes,
thought we'd
we
get
thought
done
it was
this
in
years
place.
ago.
So this just memorializes what we already thought was in place, with the exception of the Saturday from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. We checked with Winter Garden, we checked with Claremont. We're very consistent in the same hours that they have. So all this does is memorialize what everybody thought was already in place. So once this will go through 2 readings also, it's an ordinance, and then we'll make sure it's placed on the website in a very, in an area where people can find it.
And that would be up to code enforcement to enforce.
Yes.
Okay. And I am very appreciative that we checked with Winter Garden to see that we weren't out there on our own, that we checked our thinking.
Yeah, in fact, I think theirs goes to 9 p.m. We chose 8 p.m. because that's kind of what everybody thought was already in place.
Yeah.
So, but it is consistent with both Claremont and Winter Garden.
Mike brought up when this whole thing came up about the apartments having certain work hours.
Yes.
How is this compared to the work hours that the agreement was with them?
It's not in the development agreement, but I think Mike told them Monday through Friday, 7 to 8. So,
so they aren't going to be able, will they be able to work on Saturday then after that?
At the apartments, yeah, they'll be based on this agreement here.
Okay.
Or on this ordinance.
And then, so if there's already existing permits and construction going on now, would they have to comply with this after the second reading, or are they exempt because they already pulled the permit before this?
I'm assuming we're gonna hold them to this after we do the second reading. I mean, we'll take it on a case-by-case basis.
They would not be exempt.
Yeah.
Excuse me?
That's why we have a lawyer.
They would not be exempt.
They would not be exempt.
And Mike, in part of your meeting, you had that discussion with them. Because that's what started this whole thing. It's all your fault.
Of course.
So yeah, I mean, I don't think we're having a huge amount of problem outside of this, but this will get us back. This will get us to where we need to be to enforce it.
Yeah.
This puts our house in order. In this, at least in this.
In this area of the house.
Yeah.
This area of the house.
You're in the back room.
All right, I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 2020-15.
Why don't we let Joseph do a second? If he's so inclined.
Second.
Do we have any questions or comments?
Thank you very much.
Well, he needs to be included. All in favor?
Aye.
Any comments from the audience?
No.
There is no audience. Okay. Only staff. All right, we're down to town manager reports.
The one thing I wanted to bring up, so as we're doing these Zoom meetings, we can record them. So there is a process where we can record them, put them through YouTube, get the accessibility, and be able to post the meetings on the website for people to watch at their leisure. So we tested it out with the last meeting, so you can actually, if you go to the agenda section where you used to find the minutes, right next to it now says media, and you can click on that and watch the YouTube video of the meetings. So just to put everybody on notice that we're going to do that moving forward unless there's objections. We talked about the transparency and essentially being able to broadcast the meetings. We haven't quite got to that point yet, but this is a step in that direction.
Cool.
There's already a setup that Alicia put up if you want to look from last.
So the last meeting we've have posted, and so this meeting and the meetings moving forward. I think we're just having commission meetings at this point, not P&Z or ARB.
As transparent as we can possibly be.
Yes, ma'am. And I will say that everything that has to do with what we just heard has all been advertised appropriately.
Okay.
And it's all on the
notification.
website, yeah, everything that's supposed to.
Letters were sent. Those orange signs, I just don't know that they cut it. I think that's what she was talking about.
It is, but the way this property sits back and there's only the one little driveway,
I know.
it probably was not an easy thing to sign that in the first place.
And you can't, and now I know if I see an orange sign, I gotta pull over,
Yeah.
get out of my car to read it. And they don't know that. That's the only way you're gonna be able to do that. So I know it complies with the letter of the law, but I don't know if we want something bigger. I'm just asking the question.
Well, we meet, most of the other jurisdictions are the same. I have the same problem with Orange County, trying to see what it is they're doing with things.
But this is us.
Did we send any letters to them, to their mailbox?
I have to check with Jay on the letter.
They're too far away.
The way where they sit.
You've got the turnpike. There's a turnpike, that's 300 feet right there. So they're not gonna get noticed.
We only have to do it for a certain radius of the property.
Right between them and this project, right? Is that correct?
There's what?
The turnpike is between them?
For the people that live in those 13 houses.
Yeah, they're a long ways away, folks.
I don't want to belabor this, but for the people in the 13 houses, they're on the other side of the turnpike. There is a couple houses right next to it, or at least the one.
Well, it's a pretty big, the Griffin property is a pretty big piece of land.
Yes.
I mean, honest, if they're on the other side of the turnpike, I don't see how it would affect them at all.
So just to give you an orientation, the house that sits way back off Highway 50. That is that's that piece of land that we're talking about.
Right in front of the retention pond, right smack dab or behind the retention pond.
Yeah.
So it's pretty far off from those folks. And I don't know what they have against the town of
They're
Oakland.
absolutely not affected. I mean,
We can talk about this more at the next public hearing, but I just, just to clarify the sign issue because where the property sits.
Yeah, I'm not even talking about this particular instance. I'm talking about just considering, county does it that way, we have to do it that way, and could our signs be a little better? I don't know.
I think it'd be bigger because I'm like you. If I see an orange sign, I gotta get down in my vehicle and go walk up to it to read it. Most people aren't
And
gonna
people
do that.
don't even know what those orange signs mean.
Exactly.
So, I don't know.
Well,
It's all about communication.
if there's an orange sign, it means it's going to be on an agenda. You can look at P&Z, you can look at the commission agendas. There's generally an advertisement that goes in the newspaper with that. That's not the only
Right.
vehicle for letting people know what's going on.
I know. People just don't.
well, I'll say one thing about it, if I could, that, when we put the agendas on, it's really right before the meeting. It's like a Thursday before the meeting. And if we were to put something else up there on our website, they could see a little better of something coming up, like the long range agenda is. You can see things that are coming up.
Jay, let's keep to the process and not expand it at this point. At least
Believe me, I'm not trying to give myself
let's
work.
talk about that separately, okay?
Y'all can talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah.
I'm just making a comment.
All right.
All about transparency. But I'm glad they showed, I'm very glad they showed up. I really am.
Big turnout.
I kept saying, what are you here for?
I didn't catch it.
So anyway, do we have anything else?
No, that's all I have.
Parker doesn't have to.
Don't push the cap, don't push your luck.
And then I'll shut up.
Okay.
Yesterday, the Arts and Heritage Center passed both the building official inspection and the fire inspection.
That's huge.
August 10th. Very good.
We're getting there.
It's so pretty.
That's it.
All right. All right, commission report. Sal?
Good.
Rick?
Good.
Joseph?
Yes, so today I attended the Tri-League of Cities Board. You don't have to put on a mask, Kathy. I'm on the screen.
What?
You don't have to put on a mask while I'm talking. I'm on the screen.
No.
You put your mask on when I was talking.
I can feel it.
It becomes second nature.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Wait a minute. Let me get this off me.
So we had the Tri-County Board of Directors meeting today. So the Tri-County is still going to have meetings virtually on those third Thursdays for September, October, and November. We're trying to put together some programs, and so next month in September, of course, let me come back. This week is the Florida League of Cities conference. It's going to be virtual on Friday and on Thursday and Friday. Tony Ortiz of the city of Orlando is the new incoming president. So he's going to be our new president for the calendar year 2020-2021. And so he's going to give a message. But at that first meeting in September, Tony will probably give another message of what his plans are for the Florida League and for the next year. In addition, we'll probably have Florida League of Cities come and present those home rule heroes, those guys that really advocate for the state from our area. So we'll probably have that on September 17th. October 15th meeting, they're looking to have Dr. Snaith from UCF to give an overview of what's going on economically. So these are tentative possibilities for the meetings. But we will have the meetings, but we're trying to have these topics shared at those meetings. And then November 19th, we normally don't have a meeting in November, but they're looking at November 19th to have the Florida League of Cities come down and talk about revenue sharing. Of course, we know the budgets will be done, but talk about revenue sharing from the CARES Act, from the government. So hopefully we can find out if there's any opportunities for the cities and towns to have some revenue sharing based on what's going on with the COVID. So we're looking to have those meetings for the next 3 months. And then of course in the new year we have the change of the leadership for the Tri-County, which starts off in January. And Jeff Kendricks, who is a commissioner in Winter Park, will be the incoming president. So just want to give a heads up, we're still going to have the meetings virtually. We're not going to have the live ones, but if things change, we'll shift to a live meeting format. And then we're going to start looking at 2021 to see when we're going to have, how we're going to do our meetings as well. So it's going to be kind of like a fluid situation month by month, but for the rest of 2020, those dates and those subjects have been tentatively set, and more than likely going to be in place, but we're trying to get those speakers to be secure with the Florida League of Cities coming down, or not coming down, but coming online. So if you want to attend those meetings, please, the format is going to be, the Zoom format. And so just want to give a heads up that the Tri-County will continue to have the meetings for the rest of this calendar year. Nothing in December.
I think that Dr. Snaith is just a bang-up presenter. I would love to see that meeting. Because he is, for somebody who is a numbers guy, he's actually quite funny. And he's an entertaining presenter.
Yeah, so the desire is to get him for October if he's not booked.
Yes.
In October?
October.
Yes. Yeah, that'll be October 15th. So the dates, it's the third Thursday, so September 17th, October 15th, and November 19th. Nothing in December.
Okay.
And we normally try to host a meeting live in Oakland and, like once every other year. So they'll be looking at, reaching out to the cities and towns to be a host in 21. But again, we don't know when we're going to go live again.
Yeah, if we can, we will.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But just want to give that heads up. I'm going to log in on the Florida League of Cities on Thursday and Friday of this week.
Yeah, thank you for doing that. I appreciate the work that you do on our behalf.
So sorry for being long-winded, Mayor.
That's all right.
You need to put a mask on talking to me now, Judge.
No, but I need to put a mask on.
That was good.
Exactly.
I can't keep it on. I'm not good at it. Mikey?
Just school's in less than 2 weeks, so wish us all luck.
Yeah, let's hope that your virtual goes better than Orange County has.
It has to go better.
Oh, I feel so bad
you gotta
for those
figure it out.
folks.
And that's why they probably went 2 weeks, doing it practice first.
I think it's
So
a very wise
it's a
idea.
good idea. So everyone's pumped and ready so far at the school. So let's just hope for the best. Pam and staff are working their rear ends off.
Yeah, I think we need some kind of recognition for them.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah, we agree. Working on something.
Yeah.
Good, good.
That's all I have.
And I don't have anything else. So Joseph?
Seeing that the mayor has her mask on, it's 9:04. If all hearts and minds are satisfied, let's adjourn. It's 9:04 p.m.
Good night, everybody.
All right.